to Creative Constitution. Today's episode, I have a special guest, Darren K Hawkins, who's a director, an actor, has made some amazing films, and is currently working towards a new film called Vinegar Hill. Hello, Darren.
How you going there?
Oh, good. So, Darren, tell me a little bit about yourself. I think our topic was pre-production tips for indie filmmakers, and I think that's going to be an awesome one. So I'd love to get a little bit of context on who you are.
Cool. Well, I've been around the entertainment industry probably for the better part of, all my life. Started off primarily working as a musician, played in a lot of indie bands, did a lot of indie circuit stuff. When I was much younger, when I didn't have the grey hair, worked basically also as a DJ in some stupid long night shifts in local radio and things like that. Shifted away from a little bit from that when I thought, I want to be responsible and get a house. Why would you do that? And for the last 23 years, I've been working in the film and TV industry. I first of all worked back in as an actor, despite this strange-looking head that you see before you. Worked a lot of time as an actor, and I used to turn up to a friend's house who was working as a director, producer of indie stuff, and I'd often turn around and say, I don't know why they did this on set, and there was these parts in the script, and I don't understand why they didn't pick up on these, and why didn't they schedule things in this way and that way? Some of these things didn't make any sense. And this very good friend of mine, JD, he looked at me, he just would sit there and he'd nod knowingly, and just go, "Oh man, look, why don't you start making stuff yourself? If, you've got some issues there and, you're thinking you can see where things could have been done better, why don't you start doing it yourself?" And I was like, I'll do that. So, I started learning more of the process of everything that was else involved in a film, because I thought, if I'm going to jump in to be, because of course the end game was always going to be, producing, directing, writing my own material and making my own stuff. I really wanted to get a handle on what other people did on set, so that way, if I'm going to be the person that's at the top of the tree, I can't be the sort of producer, director that I've worked with in the past that would not understand what other people's jobs were doing, and have zero empathy. And I thought that is one of the worst things that you can have on set, is a producer or a director who has zero empathy for what other people are doing. So I spent a bit of time doing a lot of other jobs on sets, working sound, basically the cans on and booming and mixing and things like that.
Cool.
Just working grips, working continuity. Pretty much the only thing I didn't really do on a set was makeup, because I kind of had,
that sort of makes sense.
Well, also, to really be good at doing makeup, I probably would have had to spend, a minimum $500-600 on a starter kit.
Yeah. That stuff is expensive, especially if you want to do special effects.
Yeah, and I sort of was like, look, I just want to understand where everyone's jobs are, just so I can, as I said, by the time I'd be getting to making my own films, I wasn't going to be someone who didn't understand the process. And that also came down to when you were scheduling a film as well, and scheduling your daily routine, to have a greater understanding of what everyone's job was doing. So I spent a couple of years doing that, before making one of my first projects myself. And then gradually, went along. When it came into feature films, I co-directed a feature, with the same said director. He was very, very good in helping me out with my progress.
Was that your first feature that you co-directed?
The first feature I co-directed was a piece called The Seventh Hunt, and that was back in 2007. So quite a few years ago now.
What was it like having someone else to share the throne with? If that, having someone else that helps you call the shots.
Well, we had very clear lines of delineation from the start. It was like this. It's realistically the final call was his, because he was going to be the lead director. But it was very much a case of, getting the opportunity to be on board with a production and seeing things from a pre-production point of view all the way through to the production and into post as well. So I gained a lot from that. And there were times when, because a lot of times we shot was at night, and there was times where JD would say, I'm falling asleep behind the monitor, dude. Can you do stuff for me? So there was a bit of tag teaming in that respect.
That's nice.
So I learnt a lot. So by the time I went on to my next film, where I finally sat in the big chair by myself, I felt I'd learned a lot of skills. I basically did a 2-week production as well, which was done as a TV episode. So we structured it like that. So I was sort of gradually building my stamina, as it were, because doing a feature film, that's a look, a short film is like a 100-meter, 200-meter sprint. A feature film is a marathon.
Yes.
So you've got to learn the tactics of what you do for yourself, how you manage your time, how you manage your energy.
Yeah. Especially during the long days and the long nights. The long nights are the killers.
Oh gosh, yeah. So by the time I sat in the big chair, as it were, on a film called Next Door to the Vlinskys, which people can watch that on Amazon. They can still get it on Apple TV, or if they're on the free one, Tubi, you can get it on Tubi. In fact, I encourage you to get it on Tubi because we get slightly better residuals on Tubi than what we do anywhere else.
I love watching stuff on Tubi.
Yeah, little pro tip for anyone out there making films and your independent side of things, you get much better returns on Tubi. It's just the way it is.
That's awesome to hear.
Well, from an independent point of view, if you're backed by a studio, great returns on the studio side of things through the larger streaming services. But Tubi are really good for us on the independent side. But yeah, I learnt a lot. So I walked into doing Next Door to the Vlinskys thinking that this is kind of how much you need to know with your feature films, and I realized this is still where I was at. So there was still some of the learning curve that happened. So that by the time I not only did that little piece over the head there, Lonely Road, which was shot as a self-contained short, but also as a prequel and a proof of concept for Vinegar Hill. I was getting more of an idea as to where things were going to be, what I really needed to do, and the feature film that I completed back in July, August, The Girl in the Shadows. A lot of what I'd already learnt from previous films, I was able to take onto that one as well. So yeah, another indie film, which was about 18 months in pre, and another couple of years of working with the writer, helping develop the film, and then spending time sewing in with the local community, things like that. So it's a long process, but it's incredibly worthwhile. It's so worthwhile. It really is. Yeah.
So when you were sort of going from one feature to the next, obviously because we're really trying to help younger filmmakers understand what best to do in the pre-production phase, mainly. Yeah. What were sort of like your main learnings that you took from each? So obviously you mentioned that you're sort of, what you needed to know was up here and you were sort of there, but your first one, you're like down here. So what is that gap, and like, what was the main learning?
Look, I can say there is no substitute for experience getting out there and doing it. We can learn a certain amount of skill sets and certain little tricks that we can do through some of our short courses. And I massively recommend anyone getting out and doing short courses, especially. If you've got the time and the physical ability to be able to be full-time towards one of the universities, some of the bigger institutions, fantastic, go for it. If you don't have the time and availability, find your short courses to help skill yourself up.
Sometimes it's such a controversial thing because filmmakers don't really want to go to film school because they'd rather maybe spend that money on creating more short films or their feature and such. So did you go to those sorts of courses? Is that why you like?
I didn't go to the big schools. I spent time just doing short courses. They'd be like 1 month, 2 months sort of things to just update some of the things that I'd been learning on, basically on the job stuff. And it's good to get a confirmation that you're on the right path. Like, again, if you don't have the time, and it's a big fiscal commitment to go to these colleges and these larger film schools. It really is. And I certainly know, I mean, prior to COVID, there was some of the film schools were offering short courses, which I think is tremendous. So it's good to reinforce some of the skill sets that you're learning through, the school of life type of thing, as it were, by actually being on set and doing it. And that's where you also learn that some of the things that they may be teaching do apply and some things don't quite apply anymore.
100%.
So I think there's nothing like actually getting out there and doing it. But again, I do recommend trying to get out there and doing some short courses to help build up. And look, also, to be honest, they're a great source of networking. And that's one of the big things about our industry as well, is networking is a massive part of what we do.
Yeah.
But to sort of try to head back to part of the original question, I think one of the things that we really should be keeping in mind for ourselves is to leave our ego at the door. Know that you don't know everything and be open to learning every time you're on set.
Yeah.
I think that that's one of the biggest things I learned. And certainly when it came to the pre-production side of it, is you can never have enough pre-production. Pre-production, and then when you think you've done enough, do a little bit more pre-production, and then when you think you've still done enough, try to fit in a little bit more pre-production, because the more pre-production you do before you actually get onto set, the more of a chance that you're going to have to mitigate any things that come up. Because, look, honestly, I don't think I've ever been on a set, whether it's been a larger budgeted production or a micro budget or a low budget, that there hasn't been things that have gone wrong.
Yeah, it happens every time.
It is. And I think if we can accept that things still will go wrong, and don't get yourself down about it. Don't get caught up in it. But see it as a learning curve as well, because that way you might be helping out on someone else's production down the track, and they have exactly the same thing, and you can pass on that knowledge that you've learned and say, well, look, this kind of thing happened to me on a production whatever it was ago, and say, well, this is what worked for me. Will it work for you? And I think also it's taking that humble approach and saying, look, it worked for me, it may not work for you, but this kind of helped us out, and I just want to share that kind of knowledge. I mean, look, one of the things I'm trying to make sure I'm not doing these days, and I saw a lot of it, certainly in my younger years, I saw a lot of gatekeepers.
Yeah, it still feels like that, I think.
There is still some of that, and one thing I don't want to be is a gatekeeper. If people say to me, look, something, I'm working on such and such a production, this has been going on, is there anything that you can suggest to me? I'm always happy to go, hey, well, look, let's sit down, let's have a chat. If there's something that happened to me in a previous production that I can tell you what went on and then give you a tool to help you out with what you're doing, I think that's one of the greatest gifts that I can certainly give in being able to help people out.
100%. What is the part of the pre-production phase that you like to really focus on?
The strength of your production will be in what your producers do in pre. How they can free up a director to be able to do what a director needs to do with their actors. Yeah. And I've learned that I'm more of a creative style of producer. I'm good at being able to get out, see a location, have a look at a script, and get an idea as to what may work and what may not work with a film. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoy the process of getting out, finding the locations, and starting to visualize, which is part of a job as a director anyway, really.
Yeah, that's right.
That's where I sort of, as a producer director, I cross over quite a bit.
So I'm guessing
So I
you
think
don't love doing the scheduling and those types of things as much.
I'm not as much of a fan of the fiddly numbers game. I'm really not a fan of the numbers part of it. Because it's not as creative, and that's just something I love doing. But I can still do it.
Yeah.
I don't sit down in front of my computer going, "Yay, a spreadsheet! Wow, I've been looking forward to this spreadsheet all day long."
Yeah, 100%.
But I've done enough of them, so like I know the bits and pieces that have to be done, and I think there's a certain joy in that as well of going, okay, I can see where this schedule is starting to work, where everything is now starting to fall into place. And that's a joy as well. But I think, getting out and finding the locations, and starting to actually being able to visualize what the film is going to look like, how it's going to come out. I think that's the part that I enjoy the most.
Do you spend a lot of time making a shot list and a storyboard? Is that a big thing in your process?
Look, I've had a number of discussions with people of shot list versus storyboarding, and this is one of these things that comes down to both time, artistic ability, and budget. Because if you have the time and the artistic ability to storyboard it, that's brilliant, because that really helps out the rest of your team to be able to visually see something. And I think that's really cool. If your budget extends to the point of being able to hire someone to do your storyboards, even better. However, I think the most important thing is to shot list it. So before doing your storyboards, if you don't have the time, you don't have the budget to storyboard it, heck, you've got to shot list it, because again, like that helps you schedule it. Like, you're doing your shot list, and roughly each shot is it might take 20 minutes. So each shot is 20 minutes. So you'll end up knowing if scene 45 is going to take 4 shots to complete. Well, scene 45 is probably going to be that's 20 minutes each by 4. Well, that's how long you're going to be on that.
I actually find that having a shot list sometimes helps you a lot more with making sure that you have everything you need, because I've tried once just going off a storyboard, and I think we missed out on some coverage because of that, because you don't really do, like, it's almost like a checklist when you have your shot list. It's a bit different when you have your storyboard.
Oh, yeah. Oh, look, and one of the things also, like when you're talking about storyboarding and what have you, and it's actually really cool. This is my folder from when I did the last feature film.
Cool.
So this is the Bible, as it were, the script. And one of the things I love doing so much, apart from the fact is, you can see some of the
notes,
the basic little drawings, creations of things like that, but lots of crosses and stuff like that. That's one of my most enjoyable things, is being able to go through and cross it all off, knowing that I've got all the coverage I need to make the scene work.
So that's on set.
And to get my transitions.
Yeah.
Transitioning in and out of a scene. I think that's something that I know I learnt the hard way in some of my early short films, is learning how to create transitions to go between scenes, instead of just going, oh, that was a hard cut. Oh, where did that come from?
Actually, that's a really interesting point. Where do you sort of plan for that? Are you planning for that in the pre-production phase, and you're like, it's going to be a fade in here, it's going to be a match cut here? What's sort of like your process there?
I always have a reasonable idea how the film is going to look. So I'm trying to make things easier for the editor. How the editor is going to be easier putting this thing together. So in pre-production, I'll be sitting there and going, I need to allocate time to be able to get this shot where I know that, like for example, there may be a key production element in this particular scene that can then lead on to what my next scene is going to be. So I'll know that I need to maybe finish on that particular shot, or maybe just something that's very simple. And this is such a simple thing. It can just be a movement transition. Such a simple, like just a shot that does this, and then it moves. Your next shot, it rolls off something else. Like you look at the movie, was it 1917? That was a couple of years back now.
Oh, yep.
It looked like it was one shot, which it wasn't, of course, but that was one of the, like, if people want to look at a film and go, this is how you do transitions, that was tremendous to look at, how they'd roll off. Just, like there'd be times when they'd have like a cutter, and they'd be able to transition using a cutter. And just the edit would then roll, like the next shot would be sitting here, but it would be masked by that cutter.
I do like that.
And again, these are all simple things that you get spoken about when you're doing your short courses as well. So these are little things that the right courses, they talk about as well. So they talk about filmmaking techniques. So yeah, they're the little things that I'll plan for. So that, I'll be sitting down with my cinematographer and going, okay, these are the things we need to get. And I know this is slightly tangenting, and look, I can ramble, I can talk about this kind of stuff all day long. But yeah, sit down, like as a director, sit down with your cinematographer and really be open about stuff, and talk about how the two of you can create something together. As directors, I really think our biggest focus should be upon the performance and the feel, and try to free up our cinematographers to be free and to create with their art, because their art is the art of creating and shaping the lights, and then being able to create and shape what the camera is doing with movement, with the lenses, so it can enhance the vision that the director has.
Yeah,
and
you're right.
A good cinematographer will have their vision for how things will look as well. And that's a part of something that I spoke about earlier, about leaving your ego at the door. As I'm sure you've seen it as well, where you've been on set as an actor and you've watched the director and the cinematographer argue about something, and you sit there as an actor just going, guys, can we just do the blooming shot? Can we just get this?
It happens a lot more than people think. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think it's so important that as directors that you sit down, you spend that time with your cinematographer, and then you give each other the freedom to be able to create as well.
Yeah, because they're artists as well, so they should be given some creative freedom. I think directors and cinematographers, it's like a fine line, whereas you sort of decide as the director, like, this is sort of what I'm looking for, but then you give the cinematographer maybe the ability to choose the movement within it, or maybe even just changing the framing a bit because that looks better and things like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Like the last feature film I worked on, Casimir Dixon, who is an incredible artist as a DP. Kaz is ACS Gold accredited. And for anyone who isn't a cinematographer who may be listening to this podcast, one thing I want people to understand with getting your ACS Gold accreditation, you have to have like 10 productions as a cinematographer, virtually shot perfect, 10 in a row, before they will accredit you with your letters. So just your letters alone to be, whatever your name is, ACS. There is so much work that goes into it. And, like Kaz is, just an incredible cinematographer. And there were times when, like we went through, we created the shot list before we were on the shot, on the film set itself. And there'd be times when Kaz would be looking at my shot list, and then he'd look across at what we're seeing within the set, and he'd go, I've got something for you. Let me show you something. I've got an idea for you. And it's having, as a director, it's being able to put that ego aside and go, well, you know what? If he's got an idea, and if it's going to look better than the shots that I've got planned out, I'd be an idiot to not go with that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there were times when he came up with these incredible shots that weren't on my shot list. And there'd be times where I would have had, 4 or 5 shots written down for one little sequence. And he'd look there and go, I think we can achieve this in like 2 shots. And I'm like, dude, I'm all for that. And especially the first AD would be like, less shots? Yes. That's really good. Guys, I'm really happy for you to keep on going that way.
Those are the magic words for the ADs.
Oh, words for the, like, there were so many times when my first AD would walk up to me and she'd look at the shot list and she'd be going, okay, so what we're doing for this next, and she'd go, and I'd go, you know what, look, Kaz and I have planned out a onesie. We've got a onesie in mind for the next one. And she'd be going, yes, okay, that's good. That's good. I was like, yeah, I mean, it may take as long as what 2 shots or 3 shots are going to be, but we're cutting down our time and we're getting a wonderful, more cinematic flow instead of something that's, again, my personal opinion is that TV traditionally is more stop, chop, cutty kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Cinema is flow. That's generally, I mean, look, saying that again, I mean, look, if you're doing something that's an action film, there's a lot more hard cuts.
Chop.
Yeah, there's a lot more kinetic, I think the best word for it is, there's more of a kinetic feel.
Yeah.
When you do that, when you do hard, sharp, short cuts. But you'll still have more of that flow if you can hold a shot, if you can move around, if you can hold a shot. That's cinema. That's cinema.
100%.
Doing this kind of looking shot as we're doing now, that's TV.
Yeah. That's a good distinguishing thing. Yeah.
I'm just going to get my soapbox and I'm going to put it over here and I'm not going to talk from my soapbox anymore.
So tell me about the worst part of pre-production for you. Like the one that always gives you the most amount of headaches every time you do a new film.
Monetary limitations.
Other than money.
Well, again, it's funny because it's the hard thing when you're sitting there going, oh, I've only got this amount of money to get the basically this entire production done in.
Yeah.
What darlings am I going to have to kill?
Yeah.
Because you'll have your darlings that you have for your shots, and you're so wanting to get certain things done, but you are so short on time because obviously what we're talking about here is more the independent side of cinema.
That's right.
And I would encourage people who are in the independent cinema, if you get the opportunity to have more of a budget, don't lose that independent mindset. Still be as guerrilla as what you possibly can because you're still creative. You may have, like, one of the things I found from going from other productions that have had less money to productions that have had more money, and I've had the joy and the honor to be part of a production many a time that actually had bigger budgets on there. The problems that you find are exactly the same problems. They really are. There's no difference. It's the same animal, and just sometimes you've got a little bit of money to throw to try and help smooth the solution over.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that the thing that I find that the most annoying in pre is finding the things that I have to cut.
So
and then that
what
works
does that process look like? So do you start with you being like, okay, if I had $1 million, this is what the film would look like, and then you just keep sort of like shriveling it down based on sort of what you can do and the time allocation that you've got? Say you've only got 20 days maximum, you have X amount of money, and you have X amount of crew, so you know that every setup's going to be this and that. Yeah. So what does that look like for you? Do you sort of dream big and then sort of like funnel down, or is it sort of more, this is my budget that allows me to do it, my dream in this budget center, and then we adjust later?
I think I still dream big. When I'm writing a script, majority of the time, I'm not writing with a budget in mind. I'm just writing with what's up here, and I'll let that flow first. And then once I know what my budget is, then it's a matter of going, okay, how can I make the vision of that script work within the constraints of what we've got? And I think one of the things that I've seen as an error from what other producers have done in the past that I've worked with, and it's very frustrating, and it's frustrating from a crew as much as what it's frustrating from a cast side of thing. If you have a producer that won't be straight up front with just how much is in the budget, because there are plenty of people in both cast and crew who, once you let them know that we're only dealing with this amount and we can't afford to do everything that we would like to, plenty of people are prepared to go, that's okay, it's fine, I can still do this. And as long as you know what you're dealing with, we might even be happy to go that little bit extra that we weren't prepared to go before, because we love the project and we're passionate about it.
Yeah.
So
setting expectations.
It's making sure that people know exactly what they're walking into and the expectation of what they're going to walk into. But yeah, then it's a matter of going, okay, can I get any favors out of people that I've worked with before? Can I ask a favor in return? And I think as filmmakers also feel happy about helping people out and again, building that bank of favors. So even if you say to someone, hey, look, I need Steadicam for a day. Can you come in and do Steadicam for a day for me? You've helped somebody out, and maybe they have a connection with a location, and getting in touch with them and saying, hey, look, can you put a word in for me? And that can really help out with making that budget stretch.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's sitting down and going, okay, for the money I've got, how can I make this work? And that's that indie mentality of going, what can we do to get that same effect so it doesn't look like people will sit there and go, well, I can see you had less than $100,000 to make that film. You want people sitting there and go, oh my God, I know this is low budget, but it doesn't look it. It doesn't feel it.
So you started being an actor really before you went into directing. And personally as well, I've learned a lot about what not to do on a set from an actor's perspective. So as you were sort of getting those roles and you were getting on those bigger sets and you were seeing what was happening, what was sort of like your biggest takeaway of, when I'm going to be a director, I'm not going to do that?
I'm not going to, if you don't mind me using a slightly cursed word, I'm not going to be an asshole.
That's a good one.
And I think the biggest thing is to, again, a word that I used earlier, empathy. Approaching everything with empathy and understanding.
Yeah.
And there's that line of going, okay, we're doing a production, we've got a certain time frame to do it in, and it's finding that balance between knowing that we're doing a business, and that's as much as we want to be doing something creative and we want to make something artistic. We're dealing with people's money when we make a production. And especially when it's an indie feature, for example, people would love to make a bit of a dollar off it. They'd love to make a bit of a profit.
Yeah.
Making a film is probably the surest way, besides owning a boat, to throw money away. And I use that term because I had a couple of friends who used to own boats, and their way of describing of owning a boat was, it's a hole in the water I throw money into. And that's even the smaller boats. And sometimes it's a bit that way with film. It's a gamble. You can never be guaranteed. But yeah, so look, approaching with empathy and understanding, I think has probably been my biggest takeaway, watching other directors work. There was a director that I had a couple of scenes with some years ago now. A Hollywood director by the name of Peter Bogdanovich, who's passed now. I found Peter to be an amazingly empathetic director. And I discovered later that, Peter did start off also as an actor. And I was like,
there you go.
Okay, now I think I get it. I was, as an actor, I felt valued when Peter was directing me. As compared to, I've had some directors that have literally walked onto a set and said, okay, I need you to start here and I'm going to get you to do this. And they literally walk through the entire damn actions and they're parroting what they want you to do. And as an actor, you sit there going, well, why don't you do it then? So I'm just going to walk back over to there, get a cup of coffee, sit down, and you can do it all.
Yeah.
You know, as a director, you are allowing it and you're giving a safe space and you're giving a creative space for an actor to be able to fly. One of the things I say to my actors is that think of me as your safety net, that I want you to be able to feel that you can dive off the edge of a cliff for me, for this production. You can dive off the end of the cliff for this production and know that as you're free falling, you're not going to crash onto the rocks because I'm your safety net. And I'm going to allow you that freedom to dive for as much as what you want.
Yeah.
And know that I'm not going to allow you to crash and burn. And I'm going to give you that freedom to go back up to the top of that cliff and dive off again. And if you want to dive off in a westerly direction instead of an easterly direction, that's what I'm going to be able to give for you. And I think that's one of the greatest things that we can give as directors to our actors is the freedom to be able to do this and the knowledge that they're in a safe space to be able to do this. And that's, you know, from just even a purely physical thing of knowing that what you've created in the area is not a dangerous workspace, that they're not going to have things falling down upon them.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be doing ridiculous stunts, which I've done a couple of times in the past when I was an actor because I felt that the director wanted me to do it, so I just did it.
Well, I think as an actor, you sometimes want to be your own stunt person too. So, but going back to the empathy, I think I've learned so much about sort of bringing empathy to the table, especially with your crew, because people just don't seem to realize just how long it takes for a lighting setup to be completely moved somewhere else if you want to reverse the shot or you want to change your shot. Same with even just like setting up a unit base and how long it takes for that to be set up somewhere, and then all of a sudden you want them to move everything. Like once you're on set and you are a crew member and you sort of get to feel a little bit of everything, man, you realize just how much time is needed for people to do their job. So it needs to be incorporated in the pre-production phase. Yeah. And also you can be less of an asshole on set if you're like, if you go, hey, Zach, could you move all your lights here? Do it in 5 minutes because we're running out of time. You know that they're going to be scoffing because that there's no way that's even possible. Yeah.
And I think that's incredibly important for us who will be directors or your producers, line producers, anything that is a head of a department is understanding that empathy. And mind you, the thing that I will say that has to run as a two-way street from that is when you're working on a production, be incredibly upfront with where you are with your skill set. Because I'll say this as a producer and director, especially as a producer, there is nothing more frustrating than having somebody on set who has claimed that they can do all these things and then they are just not able to get up to standard. And you're wasting your time, you're wasting the production's time, and then as a director, I'm seeing shots fly out the window and I'm losing shots because someone isn't skilled up. Yeah. You know, have the decency to, again, just be upfront with your skill level. Be honest about it, because also there may be department heads and people that you're working with that are very happy to train you up. But if you're walking in there and you're saying, I can do this and this and this and the other, and you've pumped yourself up to be massive, and then you get found wanting, honestly, it's the one thing that, and I have on a couple of sets, I have had a blow up where I've lost, again, for want of better words, I've lost my shit. Because people have just not been honest with stuff. Yeah. And they've not taken instruction. You can, to give a person an instruction like 4 times to do something and they're refusing to do it, There is nothing more frustrating than that. And,
Yeah.
you know, I won't name the names because that's really not nice to do. We had one person on the last feature film that claimed that they were able to do things that they weren't able to do. And on one particular day, they literally set us back 2 hours.
Yeah.
2 hours.
That's a long time.
And this person, we ended up sacking this person.
Yeah.
It was basically the final thing that tipped them over the edge, and we'd given plenty of chances to this individual. We'd given plenty of chances to look, just be honest about stuff. Don't stuff us around. If you can't do something, just let us know. Don't say, yes, I can do it, and then you're sitting there, you know, for the next 15 minutes wondering how the hell that this light is meant to be in whatever position, or what am I doing? What am I picking this up? Am I picking that up? And when we lost 2 hours, and it was like, I'm sorry, we have to let you go.
You have to make those tough decisions.
Yeah, and then as a producer, once the film was over, we just had a very clear and honest conversation where I was asked, why was I sacked? And I explained the reasons why, and I said, look, we're on a very tight, low-budget film. If this was a properly budgeted film, what you just did would have cost the production, on average, about 120, 130 grand, because we would have had to have gone back and reshot it on a different day. So we wouldn't then have to have been rehiring the locations, hiring the crew to come back, hiring the cast to come back. So I said that one mistake could have cost over 100 grand. And this individual just was like, I had no idea. And I said,
yeah,
all of this could have been done by you just being honest and upfront from the word go. Like, you know, every film is an opportunity to learn and grow, no matter what your position is. Even people who are at the, you know, the top of the tree, you are learning every time. And I think, it's a long-winded way of me saying, work with empathy when you're at the, you know, when you're at the producer director level. But if you're not at that level, work with honesty with those people, because they'll appreciate that so much more. And you'll get the chance to learn and to grow and to do more.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. I love that the conversation is centered on empathy, because I think it's such an important thing. And it also goes into the respect that you give everyone on the set. And I think if we treat everyone equal and we go, you know, you have creative abilities, you are an expert in your field, and to give them the opportunities to rise and take, you know, the bull by the horns, as they say, I think is always such an important thing. Also, Darren, I'd love to know sort of if you were to give a piece of advice to someone that is just getting started in filmmaking, what would that key piece of advice be?
Don't stop dreaming.
Oh, I love that.
Keep on pursuing it. Don't allow small setbacks, because you will find small setbacks. Don't allow those setbacks to dull your shine. Be honest about yourself too. But, you know, keep on pursuing that. Don't let your fire, don't let your passion die out. I
love that.
I think that would be it. Yeah.
That's great. Darren, what have you got coming up, and where can people find you?
Okay, well, I've got a number of different productions coming up. I was recently actually in Mansfield, Victoria, doing some development and pre-production stuff for a film called Kennedy.
Cool.
And this one is set in the 1800s, in colonial times of Australia. And we are taking on the myth of a certain Australian icon from the 1800s that has been, certain stories have been glorified about him. He's only a minor player. The bushranger is only a minor player in our story. But it's set in the 1800s. It's a love story. Michael and Bridget Kennedy, who are two Irish immigrants that come to this country, literally were living in counties across from one another, and had to come and found themselves all the way across the world in another, you look at the 1800s, and coming across to Australia was akin to going to the moon.
Yeah.
The love story that develops from that. And Bridget herself was, she was very much a woman ahead of her times as well. So a lot of my focus is upon looking at who Bridget Kennedy was. She is someone that her role and her part in Australian history has been much overlooked. It's a very exciting project. I've been wanting to do this for a number of years. So that's one of the films I'm working on. I've got another couple of other productions. The one that comes after this one, so the one after Lonely Road, Vinegar Hill, because I'm absolutely wildly passionate about Kennedy, because I'm a bit of a history nerd at the best of times. I also love my horror and I love my supernatural stuff. And Vinegar Hill, which comes after that one, is a ghost story that I wrote the first draft of that one back in 2006.
Wow,
So
long time in the making.
I've had a number of drafts about that. There's another piece of mine called The Artifact that I can do on a slightly lower budget. I actually wrote it in mind with going, if I need a film that won't need an incredible amount of budget, I've tried to craft a film that can work with a lower budget. It's also a supernatural piece. It crosses over between crime and supernatural. A bunch of criminals, bank robbers, they steal stuff from the various vaults, but what they don't realize is that they've stolen a cursed artifact.
I love
and
that.
And then things start to all go wrong from there. So that's what that one's about. Vinegar Hill is basically, I suppose you can say, it's a perfect storm of a supernatural thing where people from generations gone past don't realize that they're all colliding into this one place. And I've based some of my stories within Vinegar Hill are based on some of my own personal experiences that I've had in, living in haunted houses, having gone on ghost tours and things like that. I've hosted ghost tours for people in the past as well.
Wow.
So some of the stories that are part of Vinegar Hill have come from personal experience as well. So to be honest, it's just going to be a case of where the budget lands first.
Yeah, as is often the case.
that is often the case, but we're always working on something to come next. So I've got scripts that are pretty much ready and rocking to go. The script for Vinegar Hill actually earned me an offer of representation for being a writer in the States. So
amazing.
I'm very happy about that. Lonely Road itself, was it 80, 84, 85 screenings around the world, which is not bad, from festivals all around the world. And of those festivals, 55 times we either got an award or a nomination for an award. So,
wow.
I kind of feel I'm on the right path for what I'm doing with that production. So yeah, lots of stuff coming up for that. You can find me on my website, which is always still doing updates and things like that, which is lonelyhillfilms.com.au. So what?
Yeah.
Cool. One word, Lonely Hill Films.
I'll put it in the show notes as usual.
Awesome. Yeah, lonelyhillfilms.com.au. There's links in there to some of my previous productions, as well as what I've got in development and what's coming up as well. So
amazing.
And yeah, look. For people like yourself as well, look, always happy to chat, always happy to, be able to sit down, have a fireside, as it were, with a chat about stuff. And as I said as well, I don't want to be a gatekeeper with people. So if people want to ask me advice on stuff, I'm always happy to ask advice. I'm always happy to say, well, look, this is what's happened to me in the past. It may work for you.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll work for you, but this is what I found, and this is the solution that we found, and we found we did this or this or this. So, know that you're not alone when it comes to independent film and getting stuff done. I think that's also a big thing is knowing that you're not alone, and there is a big network, and we can be there to help one another.
I love that. And that's a great place to end it. So thanks so much, guys, for listening to The Creative Constitution. Thank you, Darren, for joining us. I've had such a great
Thanks for
time
having me.
talking to you. Yeah, it was amazing, and we'll catch you in the next one.